Welcome to MLSsoccer.com's Playoff Central with Andrew Wiebe. I'm Jason Saghini. We're taking a look at the Seattle Sounders and FC Dallas matchup. When you look at the Sounders, they already have 2 titles this year with the U.S. Open Cup and the Supporters Shield. Now they're looking to do the domestic treble. It's never been done before in MLS. And of course, they're taking on FC Dallas, who won the knockout round game against Vancouver. This game is Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. And Andrew, there's a lot to play for out there.
Yeah, it really is all about the treble. We'll get to FC Dallas, but this is all about the Seattle Sounders. They've got the designated players. They've got the big money stars. They've got Clint Dempsey and Obafemi Martins, and those are the 2 guys they're going to be leaning on to get rid of that disappointment in the playoffs. We know how good they've been in the regular season in their creation, but they haven't got it done. That's why Freddie Montero's not here. That's why they invested in those 2 big stars. 4-7-2 in the playoffs. It just hasn't been good enough. They've won just 1 of 2-legged meetings in the playoffs. This time around, it has to change, and it'll come from their stars, but it will also come from those secondary players. Lamar Nagel, he has been a thorn in FC Dallas' side this year, as has Kenny Cooper. Can they get it done? Well, I think the fan base is going to demand it. They want a Western Conference Final, and they want MLS Cup.
Seattle won the first 2 meetings between these 2 teams, but Dallas won the most recent one 3-1 on September 24th at Toyota Stadium. The big news in Big D this week had to do with the suspension handed down to MAURO DIAZ for leaving the technical area against Vancouver. If you're a Dallas fan, you can find some solace here in the fact that in that 3-1 victory, DIAZ was not part of the 18-man squad. So why should Dallas not believe that they can do it again against Seattle?
Look, I'm sure they do believe, and they're going to go back to what got them here. MAURO DIAZ, to be frank with you, he wasn't there for most of the season. He just had 1 start since late April. So they've been going with the 4-4-2. I think they'll go back to that. And in that 3-1 win you mentioned, Andres Escobar was the difference. He had 2 assists. He's a guy that got into form late in the season, but he's going to have to be that creative fulcrum. And then Fabian Castillo, he's going to have to get in the open field. And Blas Perez and David Teixeira, graft, physicality, some finishing in the box. FC Dallas, they're going to be desperate from that because they have to get a result.
All right, Andrew, let's head over to the big board and take a look at the lineups. When you look at the projected lineups here, there aren't likely to be many surprises for Seattle. They were the best team in MLS, and they don't necessarily need to adjust to their opponent. I think the big question for Seattle is, what are you going to do with Marco PAPPA?
Yeah, he's been the super sub of late, and I think he'll continue to be in that role for Sigi Schmidt. That means you'll see Brad Evans, the club captain, it has to be said, up on the right side. The big question mark for me is not necessarily in the lineup, but it's how this back line will perform. 50 goals in the regular season. That's the most among Western Conference playoff teams. That's an issue. They've had some silly mistakes against Dallas in the past. They have to clean that up.
All right, and then when you look at FC Dallas, clearly the question is, what does Oscar Pareja do now that MAURO DIAZ is suspended?
Yeah, no MAURO DIAZ, as you said. I think he'll go to Andres Escobar. He said that he's rested. He didn't start in that knockout route game. He'll be on the right side, but he and Fabian Castillo will switch. They'll move all over the field. The issue is, Fabian Castillo, he's not a creator. He's going to create his own shot, but probably not for his teammates. That leaves Perez and Teixeira to really clean things up top. They've got to jump on those mistakes I talked about. David Teixeira, of his 4 goals this year, 3 have come against the Sounders. The other big change here, I think Zach Lloyd goes into central defense. It's the lineup they used in that 3-1 win. I don't see Pareja going away from it.
And don't forget Michel and his set-piece service. Dallas, one of the best teams in the league this year on set pieces that could play into it. What do you think happens in leg 1, Andrew?
I'm going to go with the scoring draw on this one. I think in the end, Seattle moves on easily at home. Either it's a scoring draw or Seattle runs away with it. I'm going to hedge on the side of that FC Dallas.
All right, I can see this being a close game. I really don't think Oscar Pareja can afford to let this game become a shootout. I think that means Dallas plays it conservatively, but I see Seattle getting the goal in this. 1-0, keep it close heading back to Seattle as Dallas gets rested and healthy. That's what we think. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section below. And of course, stay tuned to MLSsoccer.com for full playoff coverage.